We are all right. We're live. All right. So
Mhm.
welcome everyone. Appreciate you joining us on this Friday afternoon. TGIF. I hope you find the live informative. The title of today's live is our well-being equation. What this means to us, and how do we work with it. Um, Before we begin, I'd like to kind of briefly introduce ourselves and talk a little bit about our Substacks, so everyone kind of knows a little bit about us. So I'll go, and then let the ladies go after me. I'm Brone Rice, psychologist, psychoanalyst. My Substack is the Wellbeing Equation. So these ladies were I appreciate them for being willing to help me out here, as far as talking a little bit about what maybe parts of their well-being equation is and kind of how it shows up. So that'll be enough on my end. Margaret or Sue, whoever wants to go next.
I go? Okay. So
Yeah.
I'm Sue Reid. My publication is called Confidence Matters because I think it does. So I am a confidence coach. I help people. Mainly, I focus now on self-love, self-belief, and connection, because I think those are the three things we suffer with most. I did have 42 years in retail banking, so that's my previous life, and this is my new life. So yeah, that's me.
Nice.
Go, Margaret.
Margaret Williams. I served 39 years with the Army Corps of Engineers. Okay. I was forced to retire because of working in a toxic work environment. Um, I am a certified executive leadership coach, and I also have a certification in systemic team coaching, and I have a master's degree in industrial and organizational psychology. And basically, the empowered leader, it has evolved over time. So right now I'm saying, okay, I help high performing professionals transition, navigate change and transition.
Amen. And that's what you're helping me do today, Margaret. Transition. There we go. and Sue, I appreciate the help with the confidence as well.
You're welcome.
Me too.
Always.
Me too.
Let's see. So I think what I'll do is maybe kind of read you kind of what my thinking is right now on kind of what our well-being equation is. It's kind of it's evolving, but I spent about 30 minutes today going, what is it? How do I do that? I'm like, we got a book out on it. I was like, how do you not know what it is? So it says when I talk about the well-being equation, I mean a framework for exploring the different elements and psychological dynamics that support our health and wellness. Each of us has a unique mix of these that kind of shape much of kind of how we feel about ourselves as we go through life, and how we experience our lives over time. And I think in life, kind of some of the real work, if you will, is figuring out what those elements and dynamics are for each of us, and then how they relate to one another, and how do you work with them in kind of a sustainable way to improve the quality of our well-being. So that's a kind of a little overview about where I'm at in terms of how I think about well-being equation, and just a little bit about part of that. My mom is watching today, so I need to come and give a shout out to my mom. Thank you for this. Yeah, exactly. Hi, Mom. Thanks for the support. Thanks for making me a little bit more anxious. No, she's she's a retired math teacher, and
That's her
math
heart.
was like, oh, no question, one of my most difficult subjects was math.
Me
And
too.
so, oh gosh, she and I would kind of go back and forth at each other at points. She's trying to help me. So eventually, she got wise and hired kind of a friend of the family who was kind of a college math professor, and that lady came in and helped tutor me. And so, but as I was, helping other people, think about their health and wellness and how does that come together in the components that go into it, what helps, what doesn't. And I would listen to people kind of talk about what they're doing in life. And I would listen, and different factors, different psychological dynamics would come up. And I started thinking almost like in math equations, right? And like, where did that come from? Why? Like, that's not, I'm like, oh, that's my mom. That's what that is. So thank you to my mom for helping me develop the well-being equation. So also, I put out a newsletter once a month, and this month's newsletter is called the Shape of Sadness. So it's also Suicide Prevention Month. So I want to highlight that. And so let's see. And so another thing I want to do that then is kind of with the well-being equation is kind of think about how kind of sadness shows up, for each of us in various ways. And then how would you think about sadness as it relates to a little bit of your health and wellness? And as far as think about it kind of like an equation in terms of, well, what elements kind of help you, do a little better? When do things in life become a little bit more difficult? You say for certain individuals, certain holidays, Christmas, for me, a little bit more difficult time of year. I would say Margaret probably remembers living in Michigan. In Michigan, you can go, almost the whole winter where it's cold, dark, and it's cloudy because of the lake effect, right? So you don't get enough sun in the winter time, and so it's a little harder for me. I no longer live in Michigan, but I carry kind of some of that worries with me in terms of, geez, how am I going to do? Margaret lives in Alaska, so maybe living in Michigan helped prepare her for Alaska, I guess, because at points it's dark, a lot of the time, right?
Well, especially in the winter. I'm sorry, especially in the winter. Most of the day and night, it's dark. So I have to look at my watch and see what time it is because I have no concept.
Right.
And so it affects me a lot. And so it affects a lot of people. One of the things that they recommend is vitamin K. I think it's vitamin K. And also we have sad lights. And by adding these sad lights around the house, it'll help you it helps to change your mood.
Nice. Right. So then, when we're thinking about sadness, then, those would be then two elements, say the vitamin K and the lights, to kind of help maybe offset a little bit of the sadness element if you have it. For me, along those same lines, I can get low in vitamin D. So like this summer, I ran out of my vitamin D, but I don't really take much of it in the summertime to get more sunlight. So I'm usually okay in the summertime, but then I forgot to reorder some. Right. And so a couple of weeks ago, I noticed, and I'm having a little bit of a harder time getting out of bed. Okay, I'm trying to, as I mentioned before, I am trying to get a book off my back and doing a lot more work. And so I do monk hours now, where I basically go to bed at like 8:30 and get up at 3 or 3:30 in the morning and start writing, before work. And so I'm doing monk hours. And then it just maybe that's it. My body doesn't like getting up at 3:30 in the morning. Right. But a couple of days I kept going and I noticed, I go to the cabinet. I'm like, my vitamin D's out. I'm like, order it. A couple of days later, it arrives, take it. literally like 3 days later, I'm like, oh, now I'm back to where I was.
Mhm.
Right. So there's an element, along with Margaret, some supplements in regard to kind of help me. B12 would be another one that kind of helps with me in mood, sadness, like in various ways. Let's see. So I think then, one of the things I would do is for people to pay attention to, well, how does sadness generally, if it does, show up for you? And does it show up in your thoughts? Does it show up, in your body? How you move around? Do you notice kind of how you talk? That kind of step. So sadness is almost like kind of like an equation for a lot of people who come to see me that I kind of think about, because I don't have anybody who comes to see me because they're feeling well, right? People just me not feeling well. And sadness was anything to do with their loved one who passes away, and we got attention to how it's go. I think it's not a normal part of our
You're breaking up a
points.
bit for me, Bron, so I don't know about anybody else.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, is
Yeah,
it
it's
better?
breaking up a little bit.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. I have a yeah. No, I also have a tendency to mumble. So
No, it's
it's
showing
if I
for
can turn my.
me. I'm sorry, it's showing for me that your signal was unstable. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
yeah. Same here.
Oh, okay. Okay. I got you. Well, let's hope it doesn't break out completely. Okay.
Okay.
So I thought, one of the things I would do then, with sadness, like for me, when I work with it, like I don't, my idea about it has changed over time. Like I used to think, well, I want to kind of do away with it, get rid of it, fix it, and then those kind of things. And I might still have a little of those elements in my thoughts in terms of to help people, but I've also kind of, the longer I've kind of done, what I do and help people with their emotions, I come to kind of think of it as kind of almost like a normal element of life that's okay within reason. So I kind of wanted to highlight that a little bit. But let me I can move into some questions of the two of you, kind of around sadness. And I saw that both of you read my latest newsletter, the Shape of Sadness, and so you commented, and so I appreciate the both of you doing that. So you kind of did it first, and I started looking at it, I'm like, oh, let me ask some questions in terms of the points that she's highlighting, because then it's like, okay, now I can kind of see how I might begin to think about an equation for Sue, and then Margaret did some of the same. I'm like, oh, okay, now I can see where Margaret's might come into play. So, I don't care who goes first, but for each of you, you described aspects of what you noticed, about sadness and how it shows up for you this time of year. And so, the first question would be: can you relay, a bit about what you notice and how you know that it kind of shows up?
Mhm. Shall I go? Okay.
Either one.
Okay, I'm volunteering. Yeah, so I would say for me, there's two sides to it. There's sadness itself, and then there's sadness in the winter. So in when the weather's bad, and I think I react in different ways. No, actually, I probably don't, because like I said in my comments, I get tired. So when I feel any sort of sadness or stress, I straight away want to sleep. So for me, I guess that's some sort of coping strategy, because if I'm asleep, I'm not facing any problems. I'm at peace. And I've always done that since I was little, but I've only just started noticing that is my fallback. So that's what I do when I'm upset about something. In the winter months, it's different here because we do get quite a bit of light even in the winter in the UK. So although we might be a little bit depressed about the weather because it's raining, but we do get our vitamin D still if we get out outside. So I still get tired, but I find that I am very much affected by weather. And again, this is something that my self-reflection has noticed, that I know when there's a storm coming, for example, because I get really bad headaches and it's like the electricity in the air, I pick it up. And then sometimes on bad weather days, I get extremely tired. And again, I just want to sleep. And it's something to do with the weather. I'm pretty sure it's connected to weather. It's not because I feel sad because it's, I'm not in the sun, because that doesn't worry me so much. But where I used to have the urge to go to sleep, so I used to go to sleep. That's what I used to do. That was my coping strategy. Now I do something to lift my spirits. So I do something to make myself happy, to go from sad to happy. Because I realize that sadness is an emotion that is just passing through. And if you do something to distract yourself, or for me anyway, I can get through it. So now I go for a walk, I get out in the air, or if I can't go out for any reason, then I read a book but do something to stop myself feeling bad.
Okay. So let me ask you a question, Sue, then. In regard to kind of thinking about sadness and how you might conceptualize it a little bit like an equation that kind of moves a little bit, shifts.
Yeah.
So for you, say it's wintertime and you notice you're getting tired. And you mentioned you could, say, go for a walk. Say you bundle up, you go for a walk, and as I recall, you might find yourself looking out at the sea. Would that be true?
Yeah, I don't live too far from the sea, so I do love the sea. I live by Dartmoor, so great big open wide expanses. I love that. The sea is for healing. The sea to me is healing.
Yes.
When I went through a bad experience and I was stabbed and left for dead, the convalescent home I went to when I came out of hospital was by the sea. And they did that specifically because the sea is supposed to be healing. When my brother died at 34 and I was 31, I went and sat by the sea, and I sat there for hours and just listening to this. I think it's the meditative effect of the sea going in and out and the waves that helped me to heal. So I see the sea as healing, and I see the open expanses of Dartmoor as where you go to lift your spirits. Make sense?
Yeah, no, it does. Makes total sense. And so now, in the winter, when you're tired, in the example we're using, and you're going to go for a walk to the sea, are you, prior to going on the walk, when you're tired, are you sad? Prior to the walk, yeah.
Yeah, I would say, depends how you define sad. I wouldn't say I was sad, maybe a little depressed.
Okay.
So I'm feeling down, depressed, more than sad. Because sad to me is when you've got something to be sad about.
All right. So there's a distinction, an equation that I would begin to help people look at. And it's what's the difference between sadness and what's the difference between, say, being depressed. And so I think you mentioned, and how I would think about it, is the possibility that you could be tired, you could be kind of a little, I don't know what the right word would be. You're not effusive, you're not happy, and you mentioned, though, that you might not have something to be sad about.
No.
Right.
So there could be days when I just
so
feel down, and I don't know why. I couldn't tell you why. I just feel down.
Yes. Well, and so there's an interesting piece, right? In the well-being equation that I think about, the sadness particularly. I think, well, there's always a reason. I might not be able to know it exactly, but there's something there kind of contributing. And so you could make a distinction between, you got something, Margaret?
Yeah, I got a
Okay.
question. I got a question and a comment.
Yeah, go ahead.
One of it could be tied to hormonal changes in the body. Okay, for one. Okay.
Yeah.
And one can stem from trauma that you may have not uncovered yet, buried, hidden.
Right. Well, and then part of it, right, Margaret, could be, well, are those two kind of commingling at points, perhaps, and you don't quite know it, right? So that then the walk to the sea, right? That depending on how far you walk, depending, you could go for a brisk walk. You could kind of wake yourself up a little bit. Could feel a little bit more energized in a mild way. You might get some serotonin and dopamine dumped into your system, so the feel-good chemicals could happen, right? So it's an interesting thing where if there's not a reason, so speak, right, that those two things would probably help regardless. But as Margaret might be hitting upon, there might be other kind of physiological components going on, I don't know, like at the cellular level, let's say, which would then be things to kind of check out, I guess, right? I mean, people do come to me at points, because of kind of like unresolved trauma at points, and how do you kind of, work with that different between, hey, I'm just a little low because, it's that time of year, I'm not getting out as much, I'm not getting as much sun, I'm low on vitamin D, and it's just like a physiological thing going on versus, hey, there's an anniversary, where someone's passed away.
Mhm.
And I tend to get a little sad around that time of year. It just so happens to be winter. So that's I think what that raises in some ways, for sadness in terms of an equation is to kind of, one thing is to pay attention to, what's going on, and at the psychological level, at the physiological level. Other point you can kind of draw in, maybe a spiritual, component in various ways. So that's helpful, Sue, in terms of, in the example you gave. It's like, well, and that's an interesting thing too, from what I do from relating the distinction between like a low level of depression, so to speak. If it goes on, for a little while, like they call it dysthymia, right? But it's a kind of like a low grade, kind of present, but it's not debilitating as far as you can still go to your job, you can still meet people, you can still do things. Most people, whereas kind of a little bit more of a difficult thing to maybe work with is maybe more of a stronger depression, so to speak.
Yeah. I mean, Margaret said about trauma. There's definitely trauma that is still unreleased in me, because I know that, because when I'm sitting, I notice a lot that I hunch my shoulders up a lot. I know that in my body there's a lot of stress. I don't feel stressed. I don't feel depressed, but I do believe that there is an underlying something. And some days I guess there's something that wants to be released, and it's just not been released yet. Because when I talk about stuff, like I did the one of the solo lives I did was talking about when I was stabbed and left in the street, because rose up in me, and it for weeks it wanted to come out. And I knew I had to do it, and I didn't want to write it, so I said it. And since I've done that, other things have come up. And it's almost like little voices saying, can we go now? So I know there's stuff in me that still wants to come out.
Yeah. No, it's a good observation.
Mm-hmm.
And that would be part of the work as far as a well-being equation in terms of how do you understand parts of yourself, so to speak, that are kind of showing up in certain circumstances, and then how do you work with that part of yourself? Because if you didn't know about trauma, right?
Mm-hmm.
That'd be could be a difficult thing. Um, so maybe we'll come back to part of this, but Margaret, you started a little bit earlier and kind of conveyed a little bit about what happens in the winter, but you have other things that maybe that, I mean, that sounds like you have thought about in regard to what goes on for you, or thoughts that you've had about what Sue was kind of saying that said, hey, okay, well, this is maybe how it shows up, for you.
Well, I can tell you, I was sad from the beginning because anytime that you come from a broken home, my mother was schizophrenic, okay, and I had to go live with my abusive father, who was ordained minister. He was a narcissist and more than likely bipolar. All his highs and lows. I never knew who was going to come home, and he would beat me and my mother at will, and I was so afraid that he was going to kill her. Okay, so having to deal with that, I was sad my whole life, and then being rejected, being abandoned first, and then my mother didn't want anybody to know that she had a daughter. So I had to carry all this stuff around with me. So was I sad? I was always sad that I was rejected, and because of the sins of my father, nobody wanted to be a part. Oh no, you okay. Yeah, but people can say, oh, it's okay. He can do all of these things, but yet I'm persecuted for things that I didn't even do. Okay. So am I sad? Yeah, I'm sad. Winter is the worst time because those are the months that all the holidays. Okay. As far as I'm concerned, I don't have no family because if I can't come to your house, if I can't talk to your kids, then okay. So my brother, he accepted my daughter, but he rejected me. Okay. So anyway, on the holidays, it's real hard for me. Okay. Because I have nobody as far as I'm concerned. Okay. My daughter, and I talk to her occasionally because she's a truck driver. So the holidays was very hard because of the holidays that I have to spend alone. Okay. With nobody. So it is what it is. And, that's where we are. And as far as sleep, all of these things transfer to my sleep. And I can't sleep. My mind is steady, moving. So how do I shut it off so I can sleep? And all the things that I had to deal with during the day. That's why I said I'm going to protect my energy and my peace during the day. Okay? Whatever that means. Because of all the other things.
Yeah. So you're going to do what during the day? Say that again.
I'm going to protect my energy and my peace.
Yes.
So,
so
to protect my well-being because of everything that I'm going through at one time. And it's when it gets to be too much, then I have to ask myself, what is the one thing I can do to change my situation right now, to keep my sanity? That's all I can do. To keep holding it together.
Yeah. So you said something very important. You at some point understand the necessity to kind of protect yourself, your energy, mindset, spirit during the day, so to speak, right? So that would be part of your equation, right? That you kind of need. I guess what you would elements of kind of like safety, security, probably understanding, what's in your environment, what's around you, so that you might at times get more of a feeling of peace. And if that happens, right, you want to kind of understand, well, how much of those elements, in terms of you going about protecting yourself in various ways, when you find yourself kind of in peace, yeah, I would end up paying attention to how did I get it? What are the factors? And what are the psychological dynamics? What goes on with my physiology? Like, what do I need to do to reproduce those experiences within myself? And probably in relation to very few people, but you need a few where you can kind of feel safe, secure, so that you internally, externally, but particularly internally, you don't feel too overstimulated, too chaotic, right? And so to protect yourself during the day makes sense to me, right? But part of your kind of well-being equation would be, how do I think about that, and how do I go about producing some of that during my day, some of it during my week? And then as you kind of hit upon, as I notice myself getting too high in relation to maybe overstimulation somehow, right? You kind of hit upon the thought, which I like. Well, what's the one thing that I need to kind of help, right? Yeah, and then
I want to say one other thing. Okay.
yeah,
I have been suicidal. I tried to kill myself when I was a kid, and I recognize that you have to pay attention to the signs. And when you see yourself getting out of control, maybe I want to take a punching bag and use that, put whatever face on it that I need. Whatever I need to do to calm myself and bring myself to calmness. Okay?
yeah.
Understanding your patterns and your triggers is so key.
Amen. Yeah. So there's an element where you could have a punching bag with a face on it, and saying, instead of moving towards harming myself, taking my life, I could kind of get my emotion energy and put it towards something.
Anything.
Right.
That's why.
Yeah.
That's why when I start feeling these negative thoughts, I will go to Substack. I will write something in the notes.
Yeah.
It's better to write something and release it rather to keep it inside and it's killing you.
Well,
cancer, autoimmune disease, and even it drives people to suicide. Let's keep it real. So when you're talking about it, that is part of the healing process.
Right. No, and so one of the things that you're hitting upon, right, is that there's a way that you can figure out what's going on in a way really difficult, and how do I kind of be active in relation to that in a way that helps my energy, spirit, get something that's inside out of me in certain kind of ways. That would be part of someone's input, well-being equation as well in life. When you have things inside of us that don't feel good, what do you do to try to figure out what's going on, how to process them, how to kind of help lessen them within reason? And talking, writing, using the punching bag, exercising, right? There's a way to kind of help with the energy and the thoughts and whatnot to help it get outside of us to some degree, if you will. So those that kind of helps me hear a little bit more about how the two of you might realize some elements of sadness are showing up. Say maybe late fall, in the winter, and you've given some thoughts about what are some of the activities that you could do to help yourself further, right? Because you could probably think about destructive things to do with it sadness, anger, right? That would be part of life too. Not that I want to explore that per se in a certain regard, though I help people do that. It's sometimes in life it's just like, when you're a kid and those horrible things happen to you, it's like, well, you got to act out, you got to act out those things somehow, right? I'm not saying what you did, right? But then it's like, okay, certain kids would get into fights more, right? Some kids are going to be, self harm, substances, alcohol, drugs and whatnot, various things. But Margaret, you're talking about kind of being able to understand some of your history, the proclivities being prone to something overstimulating, understandably, I think, given what you described, and the importance of moving towards things that help you process to the extent that that's possible. And I get in life, a lot of this is ongoing, waxes and wanes, right? So that's good. And then, Sue, I was going to ask, what if you didn't go for a walk in the wintertime? Didn't go to the sea, and you then took a nap.
Mm-hmm.
What do you notice then?
If I if I take a nap when I'm feeling down,
Yeah.
I don't think it necessarily helps me when I wake up. I still feel down.
Yeah.
And again, a lot of it depends on why I was feeling down in the first place. So if we're just talking about the winter and the weather, probably I think I need to be distracted. So sleep is a way of distracting me. But if there's an issue that's still there when I wake up, that's not going to help. Whereas what I used to do is run. I used to run, and I used to run off my problems, like running away from them. I don't know, but it got it out of my system. That really, really worked for me. But at 66, it's hard for me to run now. It hurts my knees and hips. But I bought a hip program, which is really good. It's really working. So my goal is to be able to run again, even if it's only a little bit.
Yeah.
But I always found that helps so much. But if I go to sleep and then I wake up and I still feel bad, I don't go back to sleep again. I don't know what I do. I used to, there's all sorts of things. When I, not talking about the winter now, but when I was going through trauma, I used to eat rubbish. I used to drink a lot. So the substances, definitely.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether you did this, Margaret, but I also used to cut myself. Not hugely like some people do, but just little cuts. And I had a habit of pinching myself as well, like grabbing a piece of skin on the fingers and pinching it till it hurt. And also, it sounds crazy now, but slapping myself across the face. I used to do that.
Yeah.
So, but I guess these are all like coping mechanisms.
No, absolutely right. I mean, just the pinching, the cutting, the slapping, right? It's like this kind of like there's like, I forget. I would almost call it like it was like well, what I can say is some of the serotonin and dopamine can get released in those in relation to some pain. Right. And so it can be very distracting.
It's hard to explain if somebody's never done it.
Yeah. Well, but exactly. No, it's someone who's not been through that, doesn't understand it. You wouldn't know. But to do those things releases some serotonin and dopamine, from a physiological point of so the dopamine. So it hits dopamine receptors. Sorry, I don't want to speak wrongly about the science. So it's some of the dopamine receptors, and so it has a weird way of kind of helping us feel a little better. It's distracting, right? And in the long run, it may make things worse. But in the moment, if the pain is that high, it's like, man, I don't care what it is. It's like, let me have it. I need some relief.
Mm.
And I think over time, though, right, as we get older, hopefully, right, we knock on some wood here, right? Hopefully we get a little wiser in various ways, and then kind of learn, say with the running. So that would release, serotonin, dopamine.
Yeah.
And so you could get some of those chemicals from something that would be healthier for us, right? So one thing you mentioned, right, is that you would in the example I said, hey, don't go for a walk, don't go to the sea.
Yeah.
So for a moment, I've taken something away from you as healing, and kind of said, hey, go back to sleep, right? So I've not offered you a way out, so to speak, other than to go back to sleep. And so what you said was, when you woke up, you might have an inclination to go back to sleep. And so there's an element, right, where what you're using to feel better doesn't make you feel better, but you almost need more of it to contend with what doesn't feel good. So if I took this example and said, hey, go walk out to the sea, listen to the waves, relax, have an element or two with that experience of healing. Go for a run, come back home, take a shower, take that nap. Then you'd want that. There's part of the equation. I've altered it, right? I flipped it on its head. And then I want to know, okay, when you wake up from that nap, what goes on? So I'm not saying you necessarily know. I'm pointing out a way that I could kind of set it up to where it wouldn't be as good for you. Or I could set it up in a way that would be better for you. But but that's stuff we got to play around. That's kind of like, it's kind of like, well, what are the equations of living, right? It's almost like we're kind of practicing, experimenting with how we go about living, and what does it produce for us. Yeah. And that's why, in some ways, it's all different, right? I mean, I can tell people, hey, you go exercise and use serotonin and dopamine is going to help. All right. But some people, it's like, well, but you may need to process a certain event. If someone, passes away, dies in their family, yes, the running may help with the serotonin, whatever. Yes. But I also may need to process and grieve and give it time. And it may come back up periodically. But to figure out, how do you do a little of that? It's pretty complex in life. So there's, those are kind of elements, right? For both of you, in terms of how you might think about those kind of elements, psychological dynamics, and come together, and how do we kind of work with them, right? So one for you, Margaret. Oh, yeah, got something to say, Margaret? Go ahead.
Yeah, I have parallels in my story. I greatly appreciate, Sue, your bravery for even admitting that, because it's certain things I'm going to take to the grave. But what I want to say is I also was dealt with self-harm because of the trauma, and it did release the dopamine, as you said, and it made me feel better, but it's a temporary situation.
Yes.
Okay?
Yeah.
Also, the other thing that I did, the reason why I don't have any money is because I had a shopping addiction. Okay? When I was overseas.
I've done that too.
When I was
retail therapy.
When I was in Israel, Amazon you could just push the button and it just send it, okay? So I got a high, when I order it, but then after I order it, then it's like, okay, you put it over here, it's done lost its, it don't, the high you've gone down. So I spent a lot of money, and then when I got ready to leave Israel, most of that I gave away.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because they only give you so much poundage that you can bring back. So I had to get rid of a lot of that stuff. So I'm like, this is insanity to keep repeating the same thing over and over.
Yeah, yes. Yeah, no, that's the definition. And I can't read it, unfortunately. So someone's like saying experimenting, then noticing, then revising a bit. Bingo. I can't see whose name. I got my glasses. I still can't see it. But at the bottom.
And Merle.
Oh, nice. Nice. That is a great point. Right? It's what we're doing, right? We're noticing. Because that's what I think the main thing about the well-being equation. It's a framework, but it's a framework around kind of exploration in terms of the various, again, elements and psychological dynamics that help us do better. Right. And Merle, exactly right. You gotta kind of reflect, you gotta notice, you gotta become more self-aware. And then tinker with, play with, pay attention to what you notice. And then as you've probably heard me talk about elsewhere, it's like we're creatures of habit and repetition. We can't go through out a day without repeating some element that we've done before in life. And part of the equation, right, becomes, are you going to be able to repeat and put habits in place that are healthy for us and good for us in various ways and give back to us? Or are you going to repeat things that aren't good for us? And are we going to repeat them in ways that we don't understand why?
Can I say something?
Absolutely, you can.
With respect to the self-harm, it's this organization, SIRA, SIRA. And one of the things they tell you, they deal with, that's a self-harm organization. And whoever else suffer from that, I recommend that you get in contact with them. The thing that they recommend is look at the patterns and things and write things down when you do these things, okay? 9 times out of 10, you do it when you're stressed out.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
And then when you notice these things, then you can put these other safeguards in place.
No, it's a great example, Margaret. It's like, so if you're repeating something under stress, makes sense at points, right? We all get stressed here and there. And what do? Well, one of the things is we do is we repeat ourselves. And so, like, all right, Margaret, so put you on the spot. If you're stressed, want to pull up the computer, hit the Amazon button, want to buy the next best, greatest, wonderful self-help book on the planet. But
I'm over it. I'm over it.
No, I hit upon that, specifically because it's like, well, hey, I'm buying something that could be very helpful to me, right? The piece of the self-help that might be useful, but then, hey, if my money's gone again,
it is.
Well, and so, one of the things that I help people understand, right? Another part of human nature is, the way I look at it, the way I've been trained, is the mind in conflict. I want to get help. I want that self-help book. It could be helpful to me. And yet, I want to spend money. I want to make myself feel better, but I'm doing it in a way that if I looked at it when I wasn't stressed out, I know that's not good for me. And what do? You got a bit of a mind in conflict situation. And so, Margaret, for you, what else could you do? More helpful than push the Amazon button.
I can work on my digital products to put them out there for people to buy.
Yeah. Well, no. So there you go, right? No. So you flip. So So you flipped it on its head, right? So I'm not. This is great. I appreciate both of you right now, right? So you flipped it on its head and you said, hey, I don't have to buy the thing. I can make things that are helpful for other people, put them out there, and then they might buy them, right? And so that's a very creative way to kind of understand, hey, this would be more helpful because then I could get some money coming in. And if I wanted to buy something, maybe it's okay then.
Only.
So the well, so the equation might be is, hey, I feel a little sad. I don't know what to do. It's wintertime. Nobody's getting outside. I don't feel like getting outside regardless, but I need to go get some exercise. Maybe I'll write some things up that would be helpful for other people and myself to deal with sadness, put it out there, help people. Maybe they'll buy it, bring me a little bit of money. Maybe it helps me feel a little better. Maybe after I put it out there, I'll tell myself, all right, well, I'm going to go outside, going to go hiking, half hour, put on my snowshoes or spikes or, whatever I got to do. Take Ruger. What was the other dog's name? Ruger. And what was the other dog?
Prince.
All right. Ruger and Prince need to go outside in the winter. Okay. There's part of your well-being equation as well with sadness. Right. So let me switch gears so we don't take up like an hour and a half necessarily, but I'd like to ask both of you, given what you do here on Substack, Sue, you kind of help other women with confidence. Margaret, you help leaders in various ways with transition. So what I'm curious about, just a little bit of the kind of a thinking about the different elements, psychological dynamics, parts of our life, but as it deals with sadness, like how do you two help individuals who come to see you, some of your clients? How do you help, given what you do? What do you help them? How do you help them a little bit in regard to sadness? What would you do?
Yeah. So, I mean, first thing I need to do is explore what they're thinking. Why are you feeling sad? What's behind it? Is it trauma? Is it just, not just, but is it, the time of year? Is it something going on in your life? So I would explore that. And from a confidence point of view, obviously anything that you are sad about is going to knock your confidence. A lot of it, again, will depend on how confident you were in the first place. So if something happens then that knocks your confidence, we all have our base level of confidence. So if something knocks you back down, but you had a high level of confidence anyway, it's easier to bounce back than if you had low self-esteem, low self-love, so low self-belief, then it's more difficult to get back up. So it's kind of the realization of, why are you feeling sad? I try never to sympathize with people, but to empathize with them, because people don't need my sympathy. They need my help. Right.
Yeah.
And so if somebody bursts into tears and starts crying, that is a good thing. That's actually a sign I'm doing my job properly. If somebody starts crying, because it's releasing, they're getting out whatever's needing to come out. So yeah, I mean, it's exploratory. There's no, I would definitely do this, because that's not how I work. I come to everything with a blank page and we just fill in the page as we go along. And just, I help you with whatever you need help with. But initially we have to explore and find out what that is. And what I do is unravel the threads, which is probably what you and Margaret do as well. We're unraveling those threads to see where it leads us, because somewhere deep down there is the cause of the underlying cause of why you're feeling sad. And it could, you could come in saying, well, I'm sad because it's winter and I always get sad in winter, especially around Christmas. But then when we dive down into why that is, it could be, well, actually, somebody I was really close to died at Christmas. Or for me, I don't like Christmas because my dad loved Christmas. And before my dad died, I'd fallen out with him because of my bad relationships. I should have listened to him, but I didn't. I fought against him. And so when he died, we hadn't really made it up. We were very talking, but very cold relationship, which is sad. And so Christmas is hard for me now, because Christmas was his time. He loved it. He had time off work. One of the few times we we really saw him, and he made a big thing of it. And it's not a big thing for me anymore.
Okay.
Sorry, I went off track then.
No.
I stopped answering your question. Sorry.
We're mentioning two things quickly. Yeah, no, or two things quickly, and then I want to hear what Margaret had to say about the sadness, with the clients that she works with. So, you mentioned, kind of what you do is the exploration, which, again, I think is kind of like almost the foundation in a lot of ways of the well-being equation. It's like, that element would be reflection.
Yeah.
Right. And then Sue, maybe you tried this, maybe not, but and maybe it would work, maybe it wouldn't, but I'd be curious about at just one time, at some point near Christmas, just one day, if you could figure out something, about your father that you liked, whatever that might be, however small, and whether you could participate, in something small, just for a small period of time, purposely, and do it in a way not worked for him, but worked for you. And whether or not there would be kind of a moment of a little bit of relief, enjoyment to some degree, it might bring other emotions that would be difficult, fair enough. But that would be like a little element of an equation that I'd be curious in terms of, all right, could we play around with something just in a little bit and see? So I don't want to get too much farther afield, but I just was, I've had individuals whose parents have passed away and helped them play around with a little of this. And I got a guy whose father passed away, and he, on his father's birthday, he makes certain foods that his father loved. And he then he changes the recipe a little bit that works for him, because he always had to do it his dad's way, or it was bad. And so he's allowed himself to play with the recipe in a way that his dad would love. But he's being respectful to whatever degree with that. But he's being respectful to himself in terms of, here's what I want to do, and it's okay. Anyway, Margaret, what would you do?
Before you go to Margaret, as you were saying that, about doing something that reminds me of my dad, the anxiety was coming up in my chest then.
No, and that's why I didn't want. That's why I wanted to make it quick.
No, it's absolutely fine. It's just interesting that made me feel anxious. No, and actually, I think it's a good idea to actually think of something that I could do.
Well, you have to think, and you have to think through it, because what happens, right? It's what you just pointed. It sounds good on paper, what I just talked about, but to then go pull it off, it often will cause us more anxiety on the front end. That we got to help you then look at that part of the well-being equation in terms of how anxiety, like we're looking about sadness right now, right? So another difficult emotion will be anxiety. When that shows up, what do we do? And a lot of times it's not just like sadness shows up by itself. There'll be times when sadness shows up with anxiety. And what do I do? Right. So I appreciate you sharing that. Right.
Yeah.
All right, Margaret, you got a client who comes in, hitting it out of the park. But then you notice, hey, there's some elements of sadness that you can kind of see shows up for a client. And, maybe they tell you a few things, but how would you think about kind of, given what you have done as far as systems, organizations, right? What would you begin to think about in terms of the sadness, and try how you would think about helping your client?
What I would do is, if I see that the client is sad every time they come in, then that's a clear sign to me that they may need therapy. Okay? Because coaching is for the present and the future. And if you have dealing with trauma, you need to talk to a therapist. Not saying that we can't still work together. You can do therapy and coaching at the same time. But because I don't want to waste your time, and I don't want to waste my time.
Yeah. But that's good. No, but that kind of highlights, hey, I have something that's going to be helpful. And I'm going to go about a little bit about a certain way, depending. And yet, if there's something that else needs to be addressed, and I'm not skilled or the person to do it, I can kind of offer something additional to the client they don't have to take it, but at least, right? So
Then I've
then
done
the
my
person
job.
that's coming, no, yeah, because then the person who comes to see you, you've put in front of them the idea of options in terms of we can continue to work on what we need to, but here's something in addition that could be helpful, right? You don't have to, but it's up to you to choose, right? Well, and then you're being respectful of both of you, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It might be hard for them to hear, but they'll get over
Right.
it.
Right. Well, and it might be just a way just to kind of mention it quickly and just say, hey, I want to get into your business. I just kind of want to mention it because we are trying to help you in terms of what kind of moves you forward, and this may be something that kind of gets in the way. And if this isn't something that I work with, right? Well, and so in that way, you'd be respectful in terms of, hey, they might need to know. Yes, we can get from point A to point B. It's just like there's an element of sadness that may need to be kind of looked at and worked with that in the coaching we may not do. All right, but then you've kind of clarified things, right?
We have to
And
clarify that. We have to clarify that at the beginning of the coaching relationship.
Yeah,
in the coaching agreement. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. Well, we have hit an hour, so I'm thinking we might want to, kind of wind up at this point. For everyone, I appreciate. Well, we got about 48 people kind of watching at this point. So, I want to say to you guys, hey, thank you for showing up. And I've kind of poked around at these ladies' Substacks a little bit, and they both have really amazing kind of programs that they're helping other people with on Substack. So I would encourage you to kind of go poke around at what they have to offer. And I appreciate kind of the two of you helping me out with where I'm at in terms of trying to continue to talk to other individuals about what the well-being equation is, because I do it all the time in my office but people show up to see me usually a couple of weeks here and there over time, and so I get a chance to slowly introduce it and build it out. It's a different thing for me just to kind of like, okay, you need to say what it is clearly and help somebody who's never heard of it before think about, well, what is that, right? So I appreciate both of you coming in and being willing to kind of go on this live with me and kind of help me out. So if the two of you ever need a favor,
we both need therapy, I think. we'll be booking in.
Hey.
Well, at least I got insurance, okay? I don't have no money, but I got insurance.
Well, geez, there you go. Yeah, that might take us in a different whole topic to begin with, right? Jeez. Yeah.
Thank
all right.
you.
So anything real quick?
Really good.
Yeah,
thank you so
good.
much.
Yes, thank you. All right, everyone. Hey, have a good weekend. Go do something good for your body. Go do something good for your mind. Tell your loved ones that you do love them. Give them a hug if that's the thing. Send them a letter. Be good to yourself. Self-care. Right?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.